Okay, so on Roblox, there's a decent amount of flight simulation games. Some of them are great, and some of them are just, well, they're less great. So I guess today I thought I'd go through as many as I can and create a bit of a tier list whilst giving my personal opinions on kind of their states. And, just to make this clear, these are my personal opinions on these games, and I would actually love to see what other people think of them. Now, not all of these games in here are flight simulators necessarily, but they're all games focused around aircraft and flying. Okay, so this is the tier list that I'm going to be using. These are all the games that I'm going to be talking about. And without further ado, let's just get straight into it. Okay, well, starting us off is SFS Flight Simulator. SFS is arcadey, light, and easy to use. It's not meant to be hardcore, and it does what it does well. However, the map itself is pretty bare, and there's very limited choice in terms of aircraft, especially with about half of them in the game being game passes. There's a couple of ground vehicles, but there isn't a huge amount here to stay occupied with. It's just your average Roblox flight simulator, solid beta. Second up is a remake of one of the oldest Roblox flight sims, Dynamic Flight Simulator. This game is years old and hasn't really changed since. This means that it's glitchy, really glitchy. The planes are of their time and look hilarious compared to modern models. But if you played this game back when it was popular, you'll probably find it really interesting. For example, this game is the only one I've seen in years to still have a grapple hook tool, although it is a little broken now. If you've never played this game, it's interesting to look around and play with the glitches, but nothing more. I'm rating it a C. Next up is one of the most genuinely phenomenal flight simulators I've ever seen on Roblox. Neo Warfare X is an immensely complex game with a huge focus on combat. There is a huge selection of vehicles, with there being 348 aircraft, 190 ships, and 81 ground vehicles. The main issue I've seen people have with this game is that it's pretty overwhelming in terms of controls and the HUD. And the game almost expects you to go and research all the controls yourself. The help menu helps you get going, but not all of the keys are listed, meaning that I've found myself asking for help on the Neo Warfare Discord several times. The positive thing about all of these is that once you've learned all the controls, you're really in control, being able to do so much more than any other flight simulator on Roblox. Spy planes have an advanced camera, tankers can mid-air refuel other aircraft, transport planes can carry other players, etc, etc. There's constant updates from the developers, meaning that new stuff is added all the time. There's an awesome skin builder, meaning you can create just about any design you can think of on your aircraft. And several massive roleplay groups all focused around the game, each with hundreds of players each. I'm not a huge fan of the player base of this game. The role players tend to get a little bit toxic, and if you dare to turn on your combat mode in a free lobby, you'll be blown up almost immediately. However, this game offers so much and has pushed the boundaries of what's possible in Roblox to such an extent that it easily slides into the S tier. Now, on the other end of the spectrum we have this. Iloilo? Iloilo?
Yeah, Iloilo.
Well, that's just not helpful. I'm going to call it Iloilo. Iloilo Airport is one of those initially good-looking games with fancy graphics, adverts everywhere, and thumbnails, designed to draw in as many people as possible. Then it fills your screens with adverts for game passes. You can't even fly until you buy a 400 Robux game pass. Sorry, correction. 2,200 Robux game pass. It's laggy and it's full of 5-year-olds. Cash grab, F tier. Coming back up from that pit of despair, we have Velocity Flight Simulator. This game is also getting on a bit now, being no longer supported by the developers. I can't really recommend buying it anymore. However, it's still a really good Roblox flight simulator. The aircraft selection is a little bit limited, but the way the aircraft feel is absolutely amazing. It's quite hard to describe, but they're very rigid in their range of motion, which when combined with the lack of resistance on the controls, it creates a weirdly silky feel to the aircraft that I personally absolutely love. All of the panels on the menus and the HUD makes the game look very professional, and when combined with the slightly off music, it really sells Velocity and makes it seem like a genuine indie game. The map is pretty sparse and the player base is dropping off a bit now, but I think it still has a well-deserved space in the A tier. Continuing on with our theme of out-of-date games, another aircraft-based game that used to be absolutely huge is Jet Wars Advanced Battle. Jet Wars was a pioneer for old aircraft models, and when the game was first released, the jets were stunning examples of what Roblox could do. But after a while, people moved on, and the game is pretty hard to play. Spawn killing is rampant, and the jets struggle immensely at shooting down other aircraft. I don't really know what else to say about this one. It can be fun with friends, and it's an absolute classic, but it's not at all what it once was. C tier. Now for the heavyweight. Acceleration is the successor to Velocity, and like its little brother, the team has really made the game look and feel like a real indie game. Acceleration has an absolutely incredible flight model that is, in my personal opinion, the best on Roblox. It strikes a balance between realism and usability that I don't think any other game can match. However, the selection of aircraft isn't the best, and as a military enthusiast, it's annoying to see the main aircraft that interests me locked behind another paywall. And the game itself isn't cheap, costing about 400 Robux. It's beyond the reach of many players. The map itself is relatively plain, with a couple of detailed airports scattered throughout it. It's important to note that the game is still in its beta, and should continue to receive updates for a long while to come, although updates to the game recently have been relatively slow. All in all, this game is one of the most realistic flight simulators ever created on Roblox, putting it squarely into the S tier. Now, from one of the most profound developers of all time comes AirX 2020. Going to be honest, it was probably unfair of me to put this one in, due to it being in such an early stage of development. However, it's a public game based around flying, so I'm going to judge it all the same. It holds a lot of promise. The aircraft is done in Widgeon's unique style, and it is clear that a lot of work has already been put into it. However, I can't for the life of me get either aircraft in the game to take off, and the engine sound does my head in. I'm going to have to put it into E tier for now. To be honest, I don't know why I bothered with this one. On to a different style of game entirely. Plane Crazy is a vehicle creator with a focus on aircraft, although people can build whatever they want, from trains to boats, even rockets and spacecraft. They can often be seen being flown around the map in game. The builder is an absolute pain to utilise, and this aircraft is the only one I've actually managed to get airborne, although looking back at my previous saves makes me think I wasn't really trying very hard. The game has an incredibly loyal and talented player base, building all kinds of incredible creations with seemingly no regard for the game's physics. It takes some getting used to, but it really is a blast to play. I also recommend giving the PvP mode a go, if just purely for the memes. Plane Crazy is a truly unique game that is unlike any other game I've ever seen on Roblox, putting it squarely into the A tier. Next up, Flightline. Now, Flightline was a game that before making this video, I had never played, and I'm really glad that I gave it a go. The first thing to note is that this is another beta, meaning that this is an unfinished game. Although, again, it's open to players, so I'm going to judge it. I'm straight up going to say that, for players that don't have any Robux, this is by far one of the best flight simulators you can get if you want a more realistic experience. It's not perfect by any means. The controls are a bit of a pain, with aircraft being controlled purely by the mouse. And the control tab doesn't really tell you this, so I spent around 5 minutes trying to figure out how to turn away from the gate, before realising that I had to click to activate mouse steering. The help menu also said that Z and X were rudder, however this didn't work at all for me. The map is pretty sparse, and I had issues trying to transit from one airport to another due to the flat green baseplate and lack of navigational instruments. After a little while of playing, I felt like I was missing something. So after asking some of the members of the community, I discovered that holding the spacebar would reveal some additional controls, including the autopilot. However, not knowing where any of the airports were meant that this was pretty useless to me. Other than that, the game is pretty amazing. The graphics and menus look phenomenal, and the flight models on the aircraft feel really satisfying to fly. There's even some damage modelling in the aircraft, meaning that messing around in a 747 has never been more fun. This is a brilliant game, only just held back from an S tier, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where the developers take this. Well, right, you may have noticed that there isn't much time left in this video, and we're only halfway through. Well, unfortunately, due to personal time constraints, and this accidentally turning into a review of half of Roblox, this video has taken slightly longer than anticipated to make. Part 2 is going to be coming out very soon, and I'll be covering these games here. So please be sure to subscribe. This is my first video of this type, and I really hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I've probably annoyed some people by picking holes in their favourite games, but I'm really interested to hear your opinions, so please let me know in the comments what you guys would like order the games. Thank you all so much for watching. Patron bugging out.